Hello everybody, Creeping Creeper 22 here, and in today's video I wanted to discuss my opinions on a competitive mode in Dead by Daylight and why in my opinion it would not work in the current state of Dead by Daylight. Okay, first I'm gonna talk about the base game itself, and what I mean by that is I'll give an example. The coding of this game would have to essentially be completely redone in my opinion to allow a competitive mode, because competitive mode is supposed to be taken way more seriously. And I'm gonna be honest, you really can't take this game seriously. A good example of this is Franklin's Demise, which was in my opinion, a really good perk on Killer that had to get nerfed because when they added smoke vials, the way Franklin's Demise worked in smoke vials could not work together because of the coding. So they had to completely nerf Franklin's. I'll get into other examples of why the coding is bad things. The reason why survivors can't jump, or they haven't done anything like jumping, or a killer that can crawl on walls, is because the game would simply not allow it. So until they honestly just revamp the coding of this game, it would not be a good idea in my opinion to add a competitive mode. Now I'm talking about survivors. So on the survivor side, one main thing we need to change, and that is solo queue and swifts would have to essentially become the same thing. What I mean by that is the communication that you have on a swift team should be able to happen also on a solo queue group. And to me, they should add voice chat in the pregame lobby and then add a proximity chat in game. But if they were to do that, they would have to nerf a decent amount of survivor perks and even maybe nerf some of the base kit stuff that survivor has. Now, the reason why, in my opinion, they should make solo queue as strong as swift is so that when they make changes, instead of having to think about solo queue and swift, now you got to think about, okay, everybody can communicate. Once they're able to communicate with each other, you can, like, the strongest perks can be nerfed because you don't have to be like, oh, well, they're strong on they're strong on swift, but they're not as strong on solo queue. So with so many perks being way too strong on swift compared to solo queue, it would allow them to nerf those down pretty significantly because now everybody can communicate just as they would if they were in a swift. But I said, if they do that, they would have to nerf perks and probably even nerf some of the base kit stuff survivors have. Now, next, we'll talk about Killer. If they add a competitive to Dead by Daylight, they would have to buff, honestly, like 85% of killers. And here's why, in my opinion. In competitive, even if they didn't give solo queue voice chat, you are going to see majority swifts in the competitive mode. The best competitive people versus the best killers, survivors win every time. So I didn't word that right. The best survivors versus the best killers, the best survivors will win every single time. Survivors with the best perks versus the best killer with the best perks, they're going to lose. The survivors are going to win 80% of the time. So you would have to buff majority of killers, because here's how I think. Whenever people ask me how strong should killers be, every killer should be strong enough to win against the strongest survivors with the strongest perks. But it should take skill to be that good with that killer. You shouldn't just be able to pick up a killer and be able to stomp freaking the best survivors or even close to the best survivors. No. But if you sit down and you train with a killer and you are very, very good with them, you should be able to beat swifts, even if they bring the best perks. But that is not the case now. If you go up against a swift with the best perks right now, 90 to 80% of killers, even if you put the best killer main on their killer with the best perks, they'll still lose against the best survivors. And that should not be a thing. To me, the number one person on each killer should be able to win against the number one survivors. Not all the time, but it should come down to skill, where if that killer loses, it's because, oh, he whiffed. The survivors looped him well. And the reason why they looped him is because they were more skillful than him. Basically, this game should come down to skill. It should never come down to who has the better perks. And right now, survivors are so strong because they have such strong perks. So you would have to buff majority of killers and nerf majority of survivor perks. Maybe not majority of survivor perks, but you would have to nerf a lot of survivor perks to allow a competitive mode to actually be fair. So overall, my thoughts on this are fairly simple. I'll kind of like go through each one really quickly. The base game's code would have to be honestly completely redone because the code itself is holding back this game significantly. As I said, why do we have like a killer that can crawl on walls? Because the code won't allow it. Why did Franklin get nerfed? Because the code won't allow it to work with smoke vials. Even thinking about killers bugs, right? Springtrap, my main, if you have an axe in someone's back, you go to grab them, sometimes the game will stop you as if you grabbed it, but then the killer, I mean the survivor will just be able to keep running. His axe, Springtrap's axe will hit air very often. If you're a Springtrap main or you even play Springtrap, I'm pretty sure you witnessed this where you'll throw your axe and it will clearly be hitting the it clearly would have hit the survivor, but instead it hit the air because the air is freaking too strong, I guess. You have the Deathslinger one where even Deathslinger in parts where his gun will clearly shoot through, it doesn't. Houndmaster has a whole bunch of bugs. Yeah, there's just too many bugs in this game, especially on the killer side, to be honest, to warrant a competitive mode or to allow competitive mode to actually be fair. Like I said, with survivors, give survivors voice chat in the pre-game lobby, then give them proximity chat in the actual game, so that the difference between survivor with friends and solo queue is significantly closer. Like there is less of a difference between the two. But if you do that, you would have to nerf a lot of survivor perks, in my opinion, and some of the base kit stuff. But if you do that, even if you I'm be honest, even if you don't do that, but you want a competitive mode, you would probably have to buff a lot of the killers to make them viable against Swifts. Because right now, a lot of the killers are not viable against a good team of Swifts. And to me, even an okay team of Swifts that bring meta perks will beat good killers. So someone that's really good with a specific killer will still probably lose against not as good survivors that bring meta perks. That should never been allowed. But yeah, that's my thoughts. This is more of a rant and like a ramble. Like I do have a little bit enough, so this was definitely more of a ramble. But let me know what you guys think. As I said, all in all, I do not think the game needs to be competitive because it is not in a good spot. Survivor's not in a good spot. Killer's not in a good spot, and the game itself is not in a good spot to warrant a competitive mode. But let me know what you guys think. If you guys like, leave a like. If you dislike, leave a dislike. If you have any way to improve my content, please let me know down in the comment section below. And I'll see all you lovely people on the flip side. Peace out.
Inside lane, missing exits, glued to the pavement. Between the lines, I'll keep my gaze straight ahead as the last stop flies by.